to forget that life's a game, but shit, I did it too, know we all to blame. But it's never been the same since I learned the rules, since I got the tools and I dropped the fools. I saw the snakes and fakes and the hate that they make, the pain that they take, I just pray they awake. We may play the same game, but we do by different rules. Got a few I choose to follow, but my motto is the truth. Through the movement, commandments, solutions to the madness. My motive is decoding life's laws like mathematics. Found the blueprint schematic, showed me flow is automatic. Spit romantic semantics and then get back at it. Gotta have it. That's the first thing I found out. Why drop the clowns out?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. Welcome to No Bobs Allowed, the place where you can find refuge from all the bobs of the world. And hey, no disrespect, everybody needs a bob. We all got one. It's all good. But tonight, we're going to be taking you through a cruise on the beautiful Lake of Madison, which is the brainwaves of me and my co-host Tyler Mack, one of my best friends for my entire life, and really the architect of this podcast who has brought it all together and really made it what it is today. Tyler, how are you doing tonight?
Aw, thanks, buddy, man. I'm doing pretty good.
Breaking my balls as usual, as I like it, man.
Brother from another mother.
Damn right. And today, we were talking earlier that we wanted to see what, because you were asking me, what is the nature of a bob? Because it's just some weird slang term that who knows what it means. It's like, I keep referencing that it's fucking Ukrainian ebonics. Like, it's just weird shit that nobody really knows. And it's something that kind of was mixed up in my brain from multiple different things and consolidated into this idea of a bob. So I'll jump off on it if that's okay with you.
Go for it, man.
Cool. So really, I was first introduced to the idea of a bob as it was from this game, Ark Survival Evolved, which I'm sure not too many people know about. It's kind of a hardcore survival game. It's usually described as like Minecraft with dinosaurs. It's like hardcore PvP, and it's similar to the game Rust in that the key point is that the servers run at all times, 24/7. So if you're offline, your base can get raided by raiders. So you usually have to have like other tribe mates or auto turrets that protect your base. So that's just the idea of this game, Ark. So my cousin started playing Ark like years ago, and I was like, Jesus, dude, you're playing this game way too much. It's totally whack. And then I ended up actually starting to play it a couple years later, and the coined slur of Ark is a bob, which derives from the idea of a beach bob. Somebody who, because when you spawn, if you're a male, your name would be like Human or like Bob. And then if you're a female, it would be Jane. And those are like the given names. If you're not creative enough to think of an actual name for your character, you would spawn as Bob or Jane. So the slur is you are just a beach Bob, meaning when you spawn on the beach, you never develop the skills to actually go inland to the harder parts of the island and start dealing with real challenges. You stay on the beach where everything's easy, and it basically is Stone Age PvP for the entirety of the game. So the people that do go inland and get to more advanced techs, they come and raid the beach bobs literally for fun or just to get meat. They meat run them. Like they would literally just go out to the beach to eat up all their dinos to feed to their babies. So that's when I was first introduced to the idea of a bob. And even at the higher levels of PvP, that is the slur that you would use. Like, oh man, you're such a fucking bob. Go back to the beach. What are you even doing at high tier PvP? You are not worthy to be here. You are just a beach bob.
Some 12-year-old kid just, trying to make it, but really, it's
just
like,
trying to make
get
it.
the heck out of here, man.
Exactly, dude. I'm just trying to make it. And doesn't happen because Ark is so hardcore, you would not even permit those people on your server because they're a hazard because people will come to raid them, and then they'll find you because they're just trolling for bobs, and then they find actual PvPers. So it's not like you don't even want bobs on your server. So it becomes an extremely offensive thing to say.
Yeah, man, but what are you going to do? Those
Hey,
12-year-olds, you got to have them. You got to...
You got to have something to say to them to put them in their place. Or that's the key. And here's the key point. You are not a bob unless you do some bobbish shit. And if you do some bobbish shit, it doesn't matter if you're a high-tier PvPer or just somebody chilling on the beach. If you do bobbish things, you're a bob. And you can be like one of the leaders of a tribe, but do some bobbish shit.
Man, yeah. So...
Really okay, and so that brings us to our, I guess you would call it guest, but I would say co-host or recurring guest will be Leonid Sergeyevich Rarov. another very close friend of mine. And yeah, say hello, Leo.
Добрый вечер все, как вы поживаете?
Leo was born in Ukraine, and I was been studying Russian for a couple of years. So our friendship really grew over this ability to speak in Russian together. So he can help me, and I can kind of help him remember like his roots and where he came from. And it really means a lot to me to do that.
Yeah, I'm in a bit of a unique situation. I was 12 years old when I moved here and lived about half my life in both countries, and I, kind of have a perspective from what it was like to live in Ukraine and what it's like to live in America. And it's really amazing. And I speak 3 languages.
And you even say back when you were in Ukraine, there was a moment when you were like, 5 to 8 years old, when you realized that you were bilingual because you didn't really differentiate between Ukrainian and Russian. You thought it was just all one language.
Yes, that was interesting. I think I was using probably both Ukrainian and Russian up until I was 5 or 6. And then I started separating them, and they kind of emerged as separate languages. But it's kind of funny. The city where I'm from, Nikolaev, it's mostly a Russian city, but a lot of people also speak a mix of kind of broken Polish, Russian, Ukrainian. Some people speak more pure Ukrainian, so it kind of gets mixed up.
And a lot of like local slang. So it's like I've learned a lot of my great slang from you, Leo.
Oh, the slang is just beautiful.
And so that brings us exactly more to our third point on Bob's. But the second point would be this. There was a particular night, so I lived with Leo for, what would you say, probably like at least 6 to 8 months.
Yeah, it was about that.
And especially during the beginning of the COVID quarantine, so we spent a lot of time together.
Yeah.
And there was a time that I remember the very popular show Trailer Park Boys, I really had a bad association with. I thought it was kind of trashy and kind of lower class because I didn't really get the concept of like folksiness and family that is really the values underneath all of it.
Yeah, it seems like a really trashy, low-life show, but the hidden meaning behind of it is like that everyone, all the guys, Ricky, Julian, and Bubbles, they all have this really close friendship, and they all kind of take care of each other. And
that even if we don't have anything else, we still have each other, and we have that bond of family.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Even though they have absolutely nothing, they're living in a trashy trailer park, but they have each other, and they have the love and the value, the closeness.
And when I was living with you, Leo, you really opened me up to that because I really had a bad association with it. So we spent a lot of time watching it, and it's funny, I was talking to one of my friends in Switzerland, and she was saying, wow, I'd seen that show, but I never saw it with the philosophical angle that you seem to bring to it. And that's kind of what I do in life, is bring the philosophy out of something that on the surface may seem very banal or just normal.
That's exactly it. To most people, it will just divert them as a trashy, very kind of garbage show, but if you can bring out those values out of a complete garbage trash like that, those very good kind of loving values, then
you can bring that out of anything.
Yeah.
And so that brings us to one particular night that Leo and I it was before I'd moved into the apartment that I'm in now, that is the studio of the podcast. We were sitting up one night and we were just talking, like, because in the show there's this guy J-Rock who is just like this hilarious like white dude who is trying to be a rapper and actually is convinced he's black. Like he is, well, for whatever reason, for parody or for reality, he is black.
He's pretty much black.
So he uses this specific phrase, like kind of this old school kind of 90s influenced mentality of calling somebody whack. Like, oh man, that dude is so fucking whack. Or like sometime like T will turn to him and be like, that's whack, dude, don't ever do that again. And it's like, that's a big deal. I use this idea of like a slur as something that like hits you deep and is like offensive.
Yeah.
So that's the slur that they used in Trailer Park Boys, a sucker. Or a whack sucker.
A whack sucker.
Me and Lou were sitting up one night and we're saying to each other, how can we find not necessarily a politically correct, but a modern version of a whack sucker? Because way back in the 90s, it was like, you're a whack sucker, mark-ass trick jive turkey. But none of that really applies nowadays.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's
you got to change.
Personal to us.
Yeah, you got to change things up. Whack sucker is no longer the same meaning as it used to have.
Exactly.
It might be back, in 100 years.
Yeah, 100 years goes by. To go, like, wow, that's a whack sucker, and that won't sound dated.
Yeah.
But we had this moment where there was no modern phrase that wasn't offensive for any particular reason besides just being whack. Like, just not not being right. Just have something whacked.
Yeah, not having equalities together.
Exactly,
So to
not
say.
having your qualities together. So this one particular night, we're sitting up and we're talking about this and we're looking at each other and we're saying, what is a whack sucker? Nowadays, what is we got philosophical, of course, smoking some dabs. What is the nature of a whack sucker? What is the essence, the essential properties of a whack sucker? And at this time, we happened to be watching some Ukrainian music videos from this
Yeah.
band Grebs. Shout out to Grebs. Just an incredible...
Griby.
At the
At the
Griby.
Griby.
Bere, 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 Griby. Bere, 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 Griby. Like, fantastic. Where I think, did you know them before I showed them to you?
No.
It was like one of the
No.
original bands that I started studying, like to get the music into my brain to help the Russian stick. And it was fantastic because it is Ukrainian as well, so it has this kind of local flavor. And we were watching one of their newer songs at the time. This must have been like early 2020. And they have a song named Bob. And at first, I went through all these different stages before I even showed it to Leo of what is a bob? What are they talking about? At first, I thought, because their music is very just like club music, like upbeat techno.
Yeah, bouncy.
And
very
at
bouncy.
first, I thought they meant bob as in bobbing back and forth. And in many ways, that is kind of what they meant, just kind of like bobbing,
yeah.
mindlessly bobbing back and forth. And then there was this particular lyric that once I brought it to Leo and I was trying to get him to translate it, the lyric was "Ti dumo što ti Bog, no ti obični bob." And I connected with this in particular. That translates to, you thought that you were a god, but in fact you were just an obični, like a average bob. You thought that you were a god,
bob.
but you're just an average bob.
You're just a bob.
Yeah, just a bob. And during this time, I was still playing Ark, the like hardcore PvP with my cousin, and our tribe had just gotten wiped. Like, it was time to quit playing. Like, all of our shit got killed. It was actually very bad. It was a war that took out the whole tribe. And our leader at the time was kind of a, I would say, toxic type of guy. Like, whatever toxic masculinity means, that idea of I care more about fulfilling my own ego needs than actually being a credible dude. He was very much that type of guy. And that was the reason we ultimately got wiped, because he was behind the scenes cheating so that he was duping items. So he was like literally creating items illegitimately. And it ended up that the devs came in and they wiped our whole tribe because of that. And I kind of went off on him before I left like the Discord. I told him exactly what I thought of him. And I said that exact thing. This whole time you played a god. You said that you were the one who was keeping this tribe safe, but you are the exact reason why it fell. And it is by your own hand.
You know, it really makes it difficult when you put that many hours into a video game and to have someone else essentially fuck it up for you.
Yeah, illegitimately, because I never cheated. On record, I never did anything that wasn't expected by the game. But there were all these people that, in order to feel superior, were legitimately cheating just so that they could feel that way, even though they hadn't in actuality earned it. And that really irked me. So I said that exact thing. And actually, his second in command was this, where is she from? Lithuanian woman who is currently living in Florida. So I got to speak Russian on chat with her. And I said to her exactly that, like, "Ty думал, что ты Бог, но ты обычный Bob." Like, you thought that it's because it was a male-female dichotomy too. I was talking about her man, like in terms of like air quotes, like the leader of the tribe that she was a second in. You thought that he was this god, and he projected that to everybody, when in actuality, we all knew that he was just a big Bob that was trying to seem better than he was.
You know, it takes me back to the good old days when you had to like open up the enter tab and like type in your little cheat or whatever in Age of Empires or Warcraft 3 or whatever. But luckily with that, you didn't really have to deal with other people.
But that's the thing about this game. This is truly cheating. Like, not entering cheats, these are exploits. Like I always think of COD 4 when you could get under the map and shoot up at people and they couldn't shoot back. Like, this is truly cheating.
Like hack into like
Exactly, hacking.
Right.
And this was a guy who was doing that, but I would talk to him late at night, because that's the thing about Ark. You stay up until 3, 4, like 6 a.m. to defend, because if people are raiding you at 3 a.m., you can't go to sleep because you'll wake up without a base.
You know, and the other thing is, why would you put so many hours into a video game just to essentially screw it all up? You
But
know,
that's the key. And that's the nature of that toxic part of Bobbishness, the higher levels of it, that he was doing that to feel in power, because in his actual life, he did not feel that way. He felt very powerless, which is why we looked at the hours, like it was like some 300 days into this game. 500 days.
Yeah, it was 500.
It was over
Yep.
500 days into this game.
Whoa.
Yeah, I mean, that's whack, dude. Like,
That is a whack sucker.
it's a whack sucker. And it was the guy who everybody deferred to because he was the leader. He was the one who was, for all intents and purposes, our protector, because we deferred to him because of his status of having 500 fucking days in the game. And for that reason, whenever there was like a war going on, we looked to him to lead us. But time and time again, he would just disappear. It would be like, where is our leader? Who is going to issue us commands? Because I wasn't very good at the game. To date, I probably only have less than a month, like maybe 20 to 25 days. And that was like, I was playing that hardcore since the beginning of COVID. Like, that's the majority of what I was doing.
Well, and for how much you put in, I know your cousin put
he
in
had like
probably
300 days.
300, yeah.
Yeah, so he was also on that tier. And maybe, Leo, you can speak a little bit on what it was like when I was playing Ark. Like, I was into it, like, all the way in.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we lived in a 2-bedroom, and I pretty much didn't see Avery. You know, I worked like 8 to 5, so it was hilarious. I by the time I'd be waking up, he'd be going to sleep.
Because that's what you got to do to defend. Because that's what I learned a lot. It's very connected to the military. The best time to attack is between 3 and 4 a.m. because it's when people's circadian rhythm is the weakest.
This is a serious game. I mean, if you really want to be good at it, if you want
like, if you don't want to kill people, like, and don't want to go into the military, just play Ark, because it's like, it's the art of war, but in a sandbox, like, freestyle way.
Exactly. And this is not something Avery would do if it was kind of, without the pandemic. He'd probably be out there traveling the world right now. But, it's that's what he has been doing for years now, is he's seen a lot of it. And this was actually sort of a blessing because, we all want to, well, the people that like to gamers, we want to have, like, I don't know, a good month to just sit around, not go to work, not have responsibilities,
Exactly.
not talk to people, just withdraw into a game and, live in your own reality. But, people who have shit to do, you don't have that kind of luxury. So the pandemic hit, and Avery's like, yes, I have a summer that I'm going to completely dedicate to just get this out of my system.
To play Ark.
To play Ark, and to truly play it, because Avery doesn't half-ass shit. I mean, yeah, he was on schedule. He had timers set up. I mean, it was... I think he was working harder than me, and I was actually, like, doing a bunch of physical
And
labor at my
getting paid.
work. Yeah, and getting paid, and he... Yeah, exactly. Avery was just hanging around.
Just for fun. And that really, it opened me up to this idea of dominance hierarchy and power structures abstracted away from real life in their purest form. And that's really, to close out the idea of Ark, the reason why I got so into it is, even from a gaming perspective aside, I really view it as a unique experiment on human mentality, in terms of the only bounds of Ark are limited resources, competition, and the ability to band together in tribes. And what you get is literally, if anyone's familiar with Thomas Hobbes, it's what you get in the beginning of society out of the state of nature. In the beginning, you have, well, of course, the fourth pillar of it is a hostile environment. So in the beginning, you're just fighting the environment. You're just trying to survive. And there's dinosaurs, so you're literally like running from T-Rexes and just trying to survive. But then as it grows, you start to band together and you start to create these tribes. And before long, you're not fighting the environment anymore. Your only concern is the true apex predator of our world, which is other human beings, and especially human beings organized into tribes with serious power structures. And by the late game, you don't even worry about like PvE or like player versus environment. It is only player versus player. And even more than that, it is not just small tribes anymore. It is mega tribes where you see governments develop in terms of these massive tribes that control huge parts of the game and are truly only in competition with other mega tribes. Any smaller people just get wiped out. So either you join one of these factions or you have no chance in the game. So that kind of closes out exactly what Ark is. Is there anything else you want to talk about with Arctai?
Well, I just remember you you explaining to me how there was this other mega tribe that you basically had the alliance with.
Yeah.
And they were just they were basically keeping you guys like.
Exactly. The tribe that I was in, we weren't a mega tribe. We were, I guess you would call it an affiliated tribe, where we were protected by an alliance. So that's kind of, I would say, the highest tier of political development is when you have mutual defense treaties. And it's no longer just individual states, as in like bases or cities, whatever you want to compare it to. You have international relations in terms of complex alliances of mutual defense treaties, where if we were called Ono Savages, that was our major alliance, and if any of the Onos got attacked, we had to defend, because they would come to defend us if we were getting hit. It's a mutual defense. So it creates this huge society that, in my opinion, and the reason why I speak about it at length, is I believe that structure of organization transcends simply a game. It is explaining on a small scale how humans organize in actual reality, and how in our very early years, how we may actually have come to organize, which is why I quote Thomas Hobbes, because that's his whole thing. Out of chaos comes order, which is our society. And in this game, you see it develop, because it doesn't have to go that way. There's no need for government to develop. There's no need for complex structures like that, but they inevitably do, because they're the only way to survive.
Well, and are you talking about video games, or are you talking about in real life?
I don't know anymore. Because the micro, I would say, is Ark, but the macro is truly humans.
So I would somewhat disagree, because I feel like you hit a certain population where, eventually you have to have these societies that will come together and, build off of that. Because if you try and if everyone's individual, you're going to be running into each other constantly. And
exactly.
There's just not going to be enough room for everybody, especially in today's world.
I
we barely have
agree.
enough room.
And that's why I say that if we look at it from the beginning of humanity, back when it was just small nomadic tribes, there was a time, just like in the very beginning of Ark, that you could have a certain patch of resources that you could harvest constantly and be totally sufficient. But once there's enough players, once your tribe starts growing, it's
Right.
impossible not to conflict.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how it inevitably becomes only PvP.
You get kind of this formation of mega tribes, but it's always in flux. They come together for a purpose. Maybe some people don't like each other. Who knows?
It's funny that you say that, because that's the next level beyond mega tribes, where you have individual players whose names literally ring out. People know them by name. So when they join a server, who cares what tribe they're in? Like my cousin's best friend, Hulk Smash'em is his gamer tag. Whenever he joins a server, no matter who he's affiliated with at the time, people are like, "Oh fuck, Hulk just joined our server. We need to start defending." They call all their players.
See,
online.
that's what a good politician is.
Yeah, dude, like a mercenary. Like really, just his name rings enough to control people, to strike fear into their hearts. Truly like an ancient general or a mercenary, his name alone is enough to get people literally to wake up and to get online to defend, because just him joining the server means that it's pretty likely you're going to get raided.
Jesus, is this where we're going right now? Okay.
We're going towards Jesus?
Pick somebody you really like and follow them all the way.
Yeah, and that's how you survive an Ark as well. So that's kind of how I wanted to bring this all together, in terms of, that's an aside on Ark. I could talk about that so much, but the only real point is that game is the first game I've ever seen that creates true human society within a game on a level unprecedented.
And if you don't like anybody, then try to be somebody that somebody else likes.
Very well said. And that's the rule of Ark that we can take into our daily lives.
All right. So that pretty much.
Yeah, to close out Ark, so let's see. Okay, so back to Grebs. So what really brought it all together to understand what I mean when I say a bob, it's not just calling somebody a beach bob like an Ark, because that's like just to say one more thing on the topic of Ark and in competitive video games, it's the most abusive people I've ever seen. Like we all remember, like that's how I learned to curse is online video games, like playing Call of Duty. That's when like before like even political correctness was a thing, I got called a faggot every day just for being bad at playing video games. Like that's the internet culture.
The older kids always taught you everything. Somebody a grade or two ahead.
Yeah, just
and,
like
and
you
once,
on the streets.
Once you were able to talk to people, from all over the world, you get a lot of older kids. By like 5-6 years, that would be basically taking you through, the preschool, middle school, grade school, and then high school, and then college of swearing.
Yeah, and that's especially prevalent on the internet, which is the major point here, that since there's that disillusion of responsibility when you're not face-to-face, people feel very comfortable being verbally abusive, so it can get toxic very quickly.
Oh God, man, like back in the day, like people would ring us out. Like it was so bad. You could barely play one game on Modern Warfare 2 without having someone just, call you a faggot.
That was their favorite one, too.
Yeah, it really was.
Because it cuts straight to the core. It just like it hits you in the gut. And it's like, what do you even mean? And it's like they don't even mean that you're gay. It's just abusive.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing,
it's hate.
It's just
It's hate,
exactly.
yeah, no.
Pure, unadulterated hate.
Yep.
And that's kind of a defining factor of growing up in the era of the beginning of true online gaming, especially on console like the Xbox 360 era. That was the birth of this thing that kids can do after school to be horrendously evil to each other.
Well, and it was always kind of funny because you were always like, all right, dude, like I will literally fight you right now in person. Like name a place. I have a car. I will literally drive to you and I will fight you. And they would
no
always
doubt.
be like, oh, never mind, man.
Yeah, because they're keyboard tough guys. It's like they only feel comfortable when there's no consequence.
And to bring this back around, that is some bobbish shit.
Fucking right, dude. That's the most bobbish thing where to bring it back to the beginning derivation of Bob, that's some whack sucka shit. That is some sucka shit. When you can only talk shit when you're behind a screen that nobody can ever find you, like that's where Ark is unique because people will get pissed off enough that they'll literally DOS your router so hard it melts, because that's how hardcore Ark is, where people actually care. So this toxic community becomes concentrated in Ark. So the people that are playing this game, since they're so committed, they have 300 days, and I mean of playtime, not of total time gaming. This is 300 to 500 days of actual hours logged into this game. These people have so much to lose that they become vicious at a truly animal level that something as pure as a game like Ark can bring out, because you're in true fighting for your survival.
Well, and I don't know if you guys ever heard about this story, but just going off the internet, there was a story a couple years ago where a girlfriend actually cyberbullied her boyfriend so badly to commit suicide that he legitimately did it.
And now that's a thing. Like
Yeah.
our
Oh, yeah.
generation is the popularization of that, because that's the thing. Even us as online gamers in PvP, I can see the mentality someone would have that's a win. Like if you view it as just a game, like, oh, I'm going to make this person feel bad about themselves, that's the win. If you view it only as a video game.
Because you don't know the consequences, because you're not physically there. It's just,
Exactly.
it's a keyboard and a little chat screen, and that's it.
Often you're so young that you don't really get that there are real consequences for things like that.
And that's sort of, how people live their life, too, is, by having that kind of screen in front of them. And you cannot be a Bob like that, It shows. It's everything about you.
Exactly. Just from that one keystone can reveal the entirety of your personality and all that you need to know about someone. So, yeah, so really just to close out Ark, very abusive people. Like we're talking in the Discord chats, like the app that we would use to communicate, you would have people posting like with funny music montages of like the ISIS people chopping people's heads off, or like people getting hit by trains with like just funny like da 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 da, like just truly so numb to the nature of wishing other people harm that it became a joke. So this was truly it was boiled down to the root of human toxicity that exists in this game. So people and that's the key, that throughout all of the things they could say to each other, what are the worst things you could say? Like faggot, like there are many other things I can't actually say that are like just so offensive. The boiled down nature of pure hate, the one thing that rung above everything else that if you say to someone, then you mean it, is a Bob. You're
Well,
a fucking Bob.
And I was talking to you about this earlier, but I was scrolling through Facebook today, and someone tried to defend the fact that the Nazi flag is just a flag over the internet, or the Confederate flag is just a flag. Yeah, it's so easy to, sit behind your keyboard right now and be like, oh, yeah, the Nazi flag is just a flag. But tell me that in person, dude. Look me in the eyes and tell me that the Nazi flag is just a flag.
Invalidate all of the suffering that has happened behind all of that. I mean, yeah, we should have another topic on that, because that's where you can kind of see this whole like postmodern nihilist philosophy.
Oh
of,
yeah,
like, it doesn't matter.
we're gonna go into this. I mean, if you've heard a few jokes thrown around, maybe a lighter mood to start with, we are planning on keeping this podcast kind of light for some part of it. But we do not doubt we will talk about everything that comes to kind of rises up. It might get dark, it might get funny, you might cry. Doesn't matter. We will simply talk about what's in our mind,
what we think is true.
About what we think is true, just our truth, yeah.
Exactly.
Our truth. And our intention is to be as authentic, real, true, and just ourselves as we can be.
Very well said, Leo. And that's exactly why you're so important to be here, because you are so pure in yourself, with a perspective that very few other people do, because you have this dualistic perspective of being from both parts of the world.
I am in the unique situation that way. And I could have such a big ego and such a big head right now about everything, but it's not what I'm about. It's never been. It's never mattered. I could have been the most popular kid, and I never took that advantage. But I am loved and liked, and simply me.
And that's why it's so important to have you here. So we're kind of wrapping up here. So I just want to continue in terms of, from Ark, Bob is the most offensive thing. More than any other slur that somebody can use, it was the thing in Ark to basically say that somebody does not know what they're talking about, that they're trying to seem greater than they are, when in reality, they belong on the beach with the other people that are just bumming around hitting each other with slingshots while we're using like fully automatic weapons and laser rifles. They are on a fundamental tier below us. And that's when we're talking about it on this show, it doesn't have that much of the offensive nature, which brings us to Grebs, the song of Ukrainian rap that me and Leo were talking about. And I'll just go a little bit into it here, because when I was talking to Leo about it, it was more just this idea of, you thought that you were this big god, but in reality, you're just an average Bob. That's the only nature of it that I knew. But then when I showed it to Leo, since you're a native speaker, he understood this nature of them kind of creating, you would call it like Ukrainian Ebonics, like this birth of creating words. The way I put it before was, Americans are in an abusive relationship with the English language. We don't care how it wants us to treat it. We make it do what we want it to do. We create new words. We use slants on words because it's the imperial language, and we want to own it in a way that we make it ours.
And America is in the unique situation in terms of that, because it has people from all over the world, and not just, one or two from this country or that, but literally like thousands, hundreds of thousands, so many different groups of people. And the thing about this diversity is all these people bring something new to say. And America has got a lot of different kind of dialect. But getting back to the Russian perspective
About Grebs.
about Grebs and
Specifically Bob.
and specifically Bob and
Leo introduced me this idea of be eto bulka o eto dirka. If you could expand on that specifically
Yes.
and translate.
I would have to definitely start with explaining what if you call somebody a butt in Russian, like zhopa
Or popa.
well, Popa, it's pretty offensive. It's a lot more offensive than it is in English. And like if you say, "Oh, it's butt," like "eta zhopa," that means you're fucked. I'm
Yeah, like
fucked.
it's a bad situation.
Yeah, like it's like the I don't know. The ass might be glorified in America, but if you call somebody a butt in Russia, it's not a good thing. So, but yeah, "Beta bulka" it means
O eto dirka. It's an acronym, which I didn't get. That Bob in this song is an acronym.
Oh, and also to backtrack, Russia's about 20 to 30 years behind American pop culture. So
They're still in the 90s.
it's in the stage of the 80s, 90s, like type of experimental, like basically the rise of like your rap ebonics. You know, there's different kinds of ebonics. There's thousands of kinds of ebonics. You know, people just think, oh, it's just black people. So no, you know, there's like. We won't go into that. We might do an episode on that, though.
Oh, we of course
I
will.
will.
But this one, we're just talking about what is a Bob.
A bob. Bulka is a bun. O это dyrka. It's a hole. And then you have another bulka, which is another bun.
So that's the acronym of Bob, meaning bun, hole, bun. And
Yep.
that's literally Bob, B-O-B. It looks the same in English, which is lucky. But you realized what it's a reference to.
Yes. And let's face it, we've known a lot of people named Bob. And if you think about it, how many of them were like Bobs?
Very many, even in that mentality of kind of lacking individuality. And nothing against people named Bob or Robert. Like, that's just more of historically, there have just been so many that it's easy to get lost in the sea of mediocrity.
It's just more of the fact that Bob is such a common concept that we've started naming some people Bobs. Like, you know, you sometimes might look at a baby and it's like, you know, I wish, but no, it's just a Bob.
Yeah, do you have anything like, hey, honey, do you have any creative name to name this? I'm just kind of mentally fried today. What do you think? What do you think, Daddy? Do you have any ideas? No, I'm at a loss. It's a guy. Let's just call him Bob.
Bob.
Yep.
But that's not to say that Bobs are born.
Yeah. Bobs are. It's a choice. To be a Bob is a choice, and this is the key of
Even if you're named Bob. Yeah.
of what the acronym is, and this is where it had a special meaning to me beyond just the Ukrainian. And in my opinion, this is where it all solidifies as what I mean by a Bob. So the idea of bun, hole, bun, it's literally a picture of an ass. It's two legs and a hole.
Yes. And come on, that's kind of universal in English. You know, an ass is a donkey.
Yeah, exactly. It's an ass, a Bob, like bun, hole, bun, be at the bulka or at the dirka. It's an ass. You are literally nothing but an ass that shits. That is the most contribution you have made to the world is your feces.
Just think about it. You might be in any position in the world. You might be in whatever kind of reality that you're living in. You might have the best working brain in this area or that. You might be rich. You might be the happiest. Whatever. If your ego is just too big and out of control, you know, like even look at the dictator of freaking North Korea. You know, there's myth about him that he doesn't go number 2.
Exactly.
Like, come on, we all shit.
He's trying to deny that he could ever be a Bob.
Yep.
He could ever even be associated with that.
You don't have to look to North Korea. We have one right here in America.
Very well put. And that's another thing. We really don't want to shy
Biggest
away
Bob
from any
in the world.
topic. Goddamn right, dude. That should be our slogan. Biggest Bob. Hey, everything's bigger in America. We got the biggest Bob. And we're fucking apparently proud of it.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. And this is the final thing I wanted to say on Bob's, and then we can. I'd be interested to hear what you think about this, Ty, because this is really our first time talking about at length what I mean by Bob, because you can even hear the way that I say it. It is pejorative. I mean it not with hate, but with judgment. And this is why I say it in this way, to take it away from ARC, away from Ukrainian rap, away from Trailer Park Boys, wax suckers. This is what I mean by a Bob. So I was listening to another podcast, a comedy podcast, and they talked a lot about the nature of comedy, and how people with a lack of actual skill survive in such a competitive industry. And the key point was this: it doesn't matter how good you are when you, at a certain level, of course, nothing to take away from stand-up comics because they are phenomenal on a level that virtually no other people are in our world. The way to survive as a hack, though, is to literally fill theaters with people coming to hear your hacky shit. Literally, and this is the term that was coined that stuck in my brain and connected to what a bob is. What they say is that it doesn't matter whether you're moving people. All that matters to get paid is butts in the seats. And that phrase stuck in my head of butts in the seats. It doesn't matter the quality of the people that connect to your message. Because in my opinion, what we want to create with this podcast is something with substance, something with meaning. Like sitna, like would be how you would say it in Russian, right? Like hearty.
Sitna, yes, it's hearty food. You know, Russians have gone through a lot of periods of starvation, sometimes imposed by the government. You know, not always because there was a reason. But yes,
But that is
sitna,
what-
it's richness. It's rich.
Richness, exactly. It perpetuates life. It gives you the vital ingredients to continue your existence. And that's what I would like this podcast, from my perspective, to stand for. That we do not want people to listen to us just as butts in the seats. We want people to actually connect to what we're talking about, which is real shit. That we don't ever want to get validated for just having an amphitheater full of butts in the seats, tickets that can get payment to whoever owns us, to whoever is putting us on stage. We do not stand for a theater full of bobs, people that are literally nothing but an ass and two legs that gets butts in the seats so executives can get paid. We want people that come to us because they see what we're trying to do and they respect our message and where we're coming from. And that's why the name of this podcast is No Bobs Allowed. Because, of course, hey, if you're feeling kind of bobbish today, that's no problem. Tune in and you can get that dose of realness that you need to remind you that there's way more important stuff going on in life. You should have something hearty that actually nourishes you rather than just going to have like some empty calories for your mind, that you would go into a theater and just listen to some hacky shit because it fills those empty days of your life and it feels that you're slightly less empty. We're not about that. We want to actually bring something with substance and meaning that nourishes your mind and body and soul. And that's why we say no bobs allowed, because the moment you tune into us, you're doing something that's not bobbish. So while you're in these walls, you truly could not be a bob. So even if you come in with that mentality, we are so intolerant of bullshit that the moment you're here, it's no bobs allowed. Because if you're listening to us and you're getting where we're coming from, how could you even be a bob anymore? We've cleansed you of the bobbishness, is how I will put it.
So, I completely agree with you on everything. But we are hitting our time limit now. So,
Yep.
just to kind of wrap things up, future episodes, I know Leo had already talked about this, but we're going to be pretty light, but we also are going to get into some stuff. I know with it being October, we're going to do a kind of Halloween, October type episode, and then we might get into a little psychology. We're just going to hit all these different kind of points and stuff, but that was pretty much all I wanted to say on the...
Hell yeah. I guess the only thing to say is promote the message, yo. Like, really, this is not just a podcast. This is a movement. It's about telling the truth and being authentic and genuine and not feeling that you can't be yourself, and to try to not just be what's expected of you to get by, to actually have some personality and be real rather than just being another average Bob by choice.
Yeah, don't conform to society, people.
Yeah, you do if it happens to be in line
If it
with
happens
society.
to... If it happens to be what you're into, you know.
And that's totally cool too.
It's cool.
But as long as you do it from your own desire rather than a feeling of being judged by other people, then it's righteous.
Or to try and fit in, you know.
Yeah, exactly. But we've all had those times, and that's why we're creating this, to create a space where everybody can purge themselves of their bobbish ways.
You own yourself, Everybody owns themselves, and as easy as it is for us to make a bunch of excuses and push the responsibility off of ourselves, you know, at the end of the day, you know what you've done. Own yourself.
Very cool. Well, let's close it out. Thank you so much, Tyler,
I
for
think
really
that's the best.
being the architect of this podcast and making it happen.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
this, we would not be here if it were not for you. So I'm going to do a big shout out to you, Tyler.
Thank you too, man, for joining me. Thank you, Leo.
Yeah, Leo, thank you for being our third, man. This is huge. And to be here on the first episode, I don't think this would have been a good derivation of being a Bob without you.
I think we're all really excited about where this podcast is going and what we all three can contribute to this.
Yeah.
I second that. Yes, thank you guys.
Well, have a good one, guys. And remember, no Bobs allowed. Tune in next week for a little bit more cleansing of the Bobbish ways of our world.
Peace.